Stop right there. The voice echoed across the beautiful country club entrance. Every conversation stopped. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Members dressed in designer golf clothes turned toward the entrance. Standing there, holding an old leather golf bag, was Marcus Carter, a 45-year-old black golfer, but faded from years of use. One wealthy member laughed. "I think the public course is 5 miles that way." Several people chuckled. Another man smirked. Did somebody lose their caddy? The laughter grew louder. Marcus didn't react. He simply smiled politely. "I'm here for my 10 o'clock meeting." The receptionist checked her computer. Before she could answer, club president Charles Whitmore walked over. 60 years old, perfect gray hair, tailored white golf polo, expensive watch, confident smile. He looked Marcus up and down, then glanced at the worn golf bag. "I'm afraid this is a private club." Marcus nodded. "I know. I have an appointment." Charles laughed. "With who?" Marcus answered calmly. "The ownership group." More laughter. One member whispered, "This should be good." Charles folded his arms. "The ownership group is meeting upstairs. They don't schedule appointments with strangers." Marcus reached into his pocket. "I have confirmation." Charles never looked. Instead, he pointed toward the front gate. "I'm going to ask you one final time. Please leave." The sunrise painted the golf course golden. Marcus stood alone at a quiet municipal golf course. He practiced the same short putt, again and again and again. A teenage groundskeeper smiled. "You've already made that putt 50 times." Marcus smiled back. "My father always said, champions aren't created on tournament day. They're created when nobody's watching." The young worker nodded. Marcus packed his clubs. Today wasn't about golf. It was about something much bigger. Years earlier, Marcus had worked as a teenage caddy, not at expensive private clubs. They wouldn't hire kids from his neighborhood. Instead, he carried bags at a small public course. He listened. He learned. He studied every successful business conversation happening around him. While others saw golf, Marcus saw opportunity. Over 20 years, he built one of the country's fastest-growing sports facility companies. Driving ranges, indoor golf academies, youth training centers, community recreation projects. He quietly became one of the most respected investors in amateur golf. But almost nobody recognized his face. Because Marcus preferred building businesses, not chasing attention. Charles looked at Marcus again. "If you're looking for temporary work, we already have enough staff." Another member laughed loudly. "I told you he was here for a job." Marcus remained perfectly calm. "No, I'm here because this club has a new future." Charles shook his head. "The only future you'll find is outside that gate." The security supervisor began walking toward them. Nearby, a young black boy practicing on the putting green quietly watched everything. His excitement slowly disappeared. He lowered his golf club. His father whispered, "It's okay, son," but Marcus heard it. And something inside him broke, not because of the insults, but because another child was learning exactly how prejudice looks. Marcus slowly picked up his golf bag. He looked at Charles, then quietly said, "I hope one day this club becomes a place where talent matters more than appearance." Charles smiled sarcastically. "Not today." Marcus turned and calmly walked toward the entrance. At that exact moment, his phone vibrated. Incoming call, Sterling Sports Capital. Marcus answered. "Good morning." The voice replied, "Congratulations, Mr. Carter. The acquisition has officially closed. We're 5 minutes away." Marcus smiled. "I'll be waiting." He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Outside the front gate, 3 black luxury SUVs slowly turned into the country club driveway. No one at the entrance had any idea. Their entire world was about to change. 3 black Cadillac Escalades rolled slowly through the front entrance. The laughter around the clubhouse faded. Luxury vehicles weren't unusual at Whitmore Hills Country Club. But these weren't members arriving for a round of golf. The SUVs stopped directly beside Marcus. Professional chauffeurs stepped out first. Then, 4 executives wearing tailored Navy business suits exited the vehicles. Behind them came 2 corporate attorneys carrying premium black leather portfolios. Every conversation stopped. Charles Whitmore frowned. "Who are they?" No one answered. The lead executive walked straight toward Marcus. He smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. My apologies for the delay. The county finished recording the transfer just a few minutes ago." Marcus shook his hand. "No problem. I've had plenty of time to look around." The attorney opened a leather portfolio. Inside were several official documents. "Everything has been finalized. The ownership transfer is complete." Marcus nodded politely. "Excellent," the executive smiled. "Congratulations." Charles quickly walked toward the group. "I'm Charles Whitmore, president of Whitmore Hills Country Club. If you're looking for the ownership meeting, I can take you upstairs." The attorney looked at Charles. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary." Charles forced a smile. "I'm afraid only owners are allowed into today's meeting." The attorney replied calmly, "We're aware." Charles waited. The attorney continued. "Our client is the reason the meeting exists." Members standing nearby exchanged puzzled looks. One whispered, "What's happening?" Another quietly asked, "Who is that man?" The receptionist stared at her computer screen. She refreshed the appointment schedule, then looked up at Marcus. Her eyes widened. The calendar entry now read, 10:00 a.m. meeting with new owner Marcus Carter. She looked toward Charles. "Sir." Charles didn't notice. He was still speaking to the attorneys. The lead attorney removed one document from the portfolio. "This morning, Sterling Sports Capital officially completed the purchase of Whitmore Hills Country Club." Charles smiled nervously. "I know. We've been expecting the buyers." The attorney nodded. "Good. Then, you'll be pleased to meet them." Charles looked around. "I don't see anyone." The attorney slowly turned toward Marcus. "My client." Silence. Absolute silence. Several golf clubs slipped from members' hands. A woman quietly covered her mouth. The young black boy near the practice green smiled in disbelief. Charles laughed nervously. "No, you're joking." The attorney handed him the official purchase agreement. "We don't joke about multi-million-dollar acquisitions." Charles looked down. Every page carried official county seals, corporate signatures, bank approvals, his own board's authorization. Everything was genuine. His hands began to shake. This can't be." Marcus answered quietly. "It already is." One wealthy member finally asked, "Mr. Carter, if you could afford this place, why were you carrying that old golf bag?" Marcus smiled. "My father gave me this bag when I was 16. It's the first one I ever owned. I promised myself, no matter how successful I became, I'd never replace it." The member looked embarrassed. Another quietly lowered his head. They had mistaken simplicity for failure. Marcus looked toward the young black boy still standing beside the practice green. The boy smiled shyly. Marcus walked over. He handed him one golf ball from his bag. "My father taught me something. Golf isn't about where you start. It's about how many times you keep swinging." The boy smiled. "I'll remember that." Marcus smiled back. "I hope you do." Several members watched the moment silently. For the first time that morning, some of them began seeing Marcus instead of judging him. Just then, the lead attorney looked at his watch. "Mr. Carter, the board is waiting upstairs." Marcus nodded. He turned toward Charles. "Would you like to join us?" Charles swallowed hard. I suppose I should." Marcus smiled politely. "I think you should, because in just a few minutes, the man who had ordered him to leave would have to sit across the table from the new owner of the club." The clubhouse had never felt so quiet. Marcus Carter calmly walked through the grand marble lobby. The same members who had laughed at him only minutes earlier now stepped aside without saying a word. Charles Whitmore followed several feet behind. For the first time in nearly 20 years as club president, he felt like a guest, not the man in charge. The boardroom doors slowly opened. Inside, 10 board members were already seated around a long walnut conference table. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the championship golf course. As soon as Marcus entered, every director stood. One by one, they greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. Congratulations, it's an honor to finally meet you." Charles stopped walking. His heart sank. These weren't polite greetings. They were greetings reserved for the owner. The lead attorney placed a thick leather binder in front of Marcus. "Mr. Carter, these are the final governance documents." Marcus reviewed each page carefully, then signed the final signature. The attorney smiled. "Congratulations, as of this moment, you are officially chairman of Whitmore Hills Country Club." Silence filled the room. Charles slowly lowered himself into a chair. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. After several moments, Charles looked across the table. "I owe you an apology." Marcus remained quiet. Charles continued, "When you arrived this morning, I never looked beyond your clothes. I saw an old golf bag. I saw worn shoes. And I assumed you didn't belong here." He paused. "I judged you before learning your name." The room remained silent. Several directors nodded sadly. Marcus folded his hands. "My father worked 2 jobs. My mother cleaned hotel rooms. We didn't have country club memberships. We couldn't afford private golf lessons. When I was 12, I stood outside a fence like this one, watching other children play. One afternoon, I asked a member if I could retrieve a golf ball that had rolled outside the fence. Instead, he asked me to leave. I remember thinking, maybe golf isn't meant for people like me." Marcus smiled softly. "But my father refused to let me believe that. He found a used golf club at a garage sale. He cut it down to fit my height, and every evening we practiced together at a public park." Several directors quietly wiped away tears. Marcus continued, "I didn't become successful because someone opened doors for me. I became successful because my parents taught me. Character is worth more than comfort. Discipline is worth more than talent. And respect should never depend on someone's bank account." He looked around the room. "That's why I bought this club." One director asked, "To expand your investment portfolio?" Marcus smiled. "No, to change what happens at the front gate." Marcus stood and walked toward the large window overlooking the golf course. "This club has one of the finest courses in the country. But greatness isn't measured by perfect fairways. It's measured by how people are treated." He turned back toward the board. "Today, I have 3 announcements." Everyone leaned forward. "First, no employee will ever judge a guest by appearance. Every staff member from reception to management will complete customer dignity and inclusion training." Several directors immediately nodded. "Approved," Marcus continued. "Second, we're launching a youth golf scholarship program. Every year, children from underserved communities will receive professional coaching, equipment, and full access to this course." Charles looked up in surprise. Marcus glanced toward the practice green outside. "I never want another child standing outside these gates wondering if they belong." The room fell silent. "And third, membership standards will focus on character and community involvement, not social status." For a moment, no one spoke. Then one director slowly began clapping. Another joined. Within seconds, the entire boardroom erupted into applause. Even Charles stood, not because he had to, but because he knew the club was about to become something far greater than it had ever been before. 1 hour later, every member of Whitmore Hills Country Club received an emergency notification. Mandatory meeting. The grand ballroom quickly filled. Nearly 200 members gathered. Some were confused. Others had already heard rumors. Charles Whitmore slowly walked onto the stage. For the first time in 20 years, he looked nervous. Behind him stood the board of directors, and beside them, Marcus Carter, still carrying the same old leather golf bag. Charles adjusted the microphone. His voice was quieter than usual. "This morning, I made the biggest mistake of my career. The room became silent. I judged a man before I learned his name. I judged his clothes. I judged his golf bag. I judged the dirt on his shoes. He paused, and I was completely wrong. Several members lowered their heads. Many of them remembered laughing. Charles looked toward Marcus. The man I asked to leave is now the owner of this club. A wave of whispers spread through the ballroom. Some members looked stunned. Others looked embarrassed. The young black boy from earlier smiled proudly from the back row beside his father. Charles turned toward Marcus. "I've already submitted my resignation." Gasps filled the room. "I don't deserve to lead this club anymore." The board chairman quietly handed Marcus the resignation letter. Everyone waited. Marcus unfolded the paper. He read it carefully. Then, he folded it again, without signing it. Without saying a word, he tore the resignation in half. The ballroom froze. Charles stared at him in disbelief. "Why?" Marcus smiled. "Because firing you would be the easiest decision I'll make all year." Charles lowered his eyes. Marcus continued. "But easy decisions rarely create lasting change." Marcus stepped toward the microphone. "When I walked through those front gates today, I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't looking to embarrass anyone. I came here with a dream that no child would ever feel like they don't belong." He looked around the ballroom. "If I humiliate you today, I simply become another version of the problem." The room remained completely silent. "So instead, I'm giving you something much harder. A chance to become better." Marcus looked directly at Charles. "If you truly regret what happened, then help me rebuild this place." Charles looked up slowly. "I'll do anything." Marcus nodded. "Good. Starting tomorrow, you'll lead our new community outreach program." Several members looked surprised. Marcus explained. "You'll visit public schools. You'll visit community golf courses. You'll help create opportunities for children who never imagined they could belong here." Charles's eyes filled with tears. "You still trust me?" Marcus answered softly. "No, I trust the man you're capable of becoming." At that moment, Marcus noticed the young black boy quietly standing near the stage. Marcus smiled. "Come here for a second." The boy walked forward nervously. Marcus opened his old leather golf bag. Inside, he removed the first golf club his father had ever given him. The grip was worn. The metal head carried years of scratches. Marcus placed it gently into the boy's hands. "My father bought this at a garage sale. It wasn't expensive, but it changed my life." He smiled warmly. "Now, I hope it helps change yours." The boy hugged the club tightly. "I'll take good care of it." Marcus smiled. "I know you will." Many people in the audience quietly wiped away tears. For the first time, the applause wasn't for a wealthy businessman. It was for a man who had chosen compassion over revenge. Spring arrived. Whitmore Hills Country Club looked more beautiful than ever. The perfectly trimmed fairways stretched beneath a brilliant blue sky. Fresh flowers lined the clubhouse entrance. But the biggest change couldn't be seen from the outside. It could only be felt. Every guest who walked through the front gates was greeted with the exact same words. "Welcome. We're glad you're here." No one was judged by their clothes, their car, their skin color, or the golf clubs they carried. Every Saturday morning, the club opened its gates to children from local public schools. Some had never held a golf club before. Others had only watched the sport on television. Now, professional instructors volunteered their time. Club members donated equipment. Scholarships covered every lesson. Laughter echoed across the driving range, exactly as Marcus had imagined. Charles Whitmore had changed too. Instead of spending weekends entertaining wealthy investors, he spent them mentoring young golfers. He personally visited schools throughout the county. He spoke honestly about the mistake that changed his life. "I almost judged away the greatest leader this club has ever had, and I never want another child to feel like they don't belong." His words carried weight, because they came from experience, not pride. 6 months later, Whitmore Hills hosted its biggest annual charity tournament. Players arrived from across the country. Business leaders, professional athletes, military veterans, teachers, firefighters, farmers. For the first time in club history, the tournament reflected the entire community, not just the wealthiest members. Reporters filled the clubhouse. Television cameras lined the 18th green. Everyone wanted to see the remarkable transformation. Just before the tournament began, Marcus noticed a familiar face. It was the young black boy from the day he had been turned away. His name was Jordan. Now 12 years old, he stood confidently on the first tee, wearing a clean blue polo shirt, holding the same old golf club Marcus had given him. Jordan looked nervous. Marcus walked over and smiled. "Ready?" Jordan nodded. "I've practiced every single day." Marcus grinned. "Then trust your swing." Jordan took a deep breath. He hit the ball. It soared high into the bright morning sky, landing perfectly in the center of the fairway. The crowd erupted into applause. Marcus smiled quietly. It wasn't just a great shot. It was proof that opportunity changes lives. That evening, hundreds of guests gathered inside the grand ballroom. Marcus stepped onto the stage. The room became silent. He looked around slowly. "When I first walked through these doors, many people saw an old golf bag. They saw worn shoes. They saw someone who didn't belong." He paused. But appearances never tell the whole story. He pointed toward Jordan. Today, that young man reminded all of us why this club exists. Not to separate people, but to bring them together. Thunderous applause filled the ballroom. Marcus continued. "Real success isn't measured by the price of your membership. It's measured by the doors you open for others. Because the strongest leaders don't build bigger gates. They build longer tables." The audience rose to its feet. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. Even Charles wiped away tears. As the guests slowly left, Marcus walked back to the practice green. The sun was setting over the course. Golden light stretched across the fairways. He looked down at his old leather golf bag, the same bag people had laughed at. He gently brushed the dust from it, then smiled. Not because he had proven anyone wrong, but because he had proven his father right. Character will always outlast first impressions. Never judge someone by what they wear, the car they drive, or the equipment they carry. The person you underestimate today may become the leader who changes your tomorrow. Because respect isn't earned by wealth. It's shown through the way we treat every person we meet. If you believe everyone deserves respect, no matter where they come from or what they look like, comment respect.